Okay, so I'm going to start this with an okay so. I don't think I'm doing that as much as I used to, but yeah, all right. So the last video I posted was on wheat and, how I was kind of worried about if it's going to produce anything. And, to be quite honest with you, I'm worried a little bit, but I'm not worried too much, just because I didn't plant this for grain so much. I planted over 400 acres of wheat. I figured that I would take 200 of the best acres that I have, 200 to 250 of the best acres of wheat that I have, and I will combine that for grain. And I'm just going to kind of put a squash to what y'all have been saying about planting it with a drill and planting it with the way that I planted it. So with a drill, 2.5, 3.5 bushels to the acre. That's about what you put down depending on where you're at and all, and seed size as well, because you don't want to overpopulate your wheat. Now, some guys, when they get it in early enough, they realize that wheat will tiller out. And one seed can produce up to, I believe, 5 heads of wheat. So if you get it in early enough and it tillers out, it'll spread out and grow, take up all the little gaps and stuff. But I knew, because it was as dry as it was when I did get it in the ground, we took the soybeans off, and then I put it in the fertilizer spreader, spread it out over the whole farms, over the farms that we have, and, said, okay, here's how this is going to go. Hopefully, in a week, like when it was supposed to actually give us some rain, it would rain, and that wheat would be up and out of the ground by the first week of October. Well, we didn't get the rain, and the rain didn't come, the rain didn't come, the rain didn't come. The wheat that was pretty deep, I'm going to say 1.5 inches deep or more, 1.5 inches. Some of it went a little deeper than that. It might have went right down to the bottom. Now that came up, but the wheat that was an inch deep and less just sat there. I do not like to put wheat in any deeper than an inch, right, with a grain drill. And you may ask me why. Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because the ground here is quite, it's very clay type soil. And if you've ever grown wheat here, you would know that if you get a heavy rain on clay, it seals up. It gets a crust on it, a pretty nasty one at that. And if you go 1.5 inches, you go an inch, but if you go 1.5 inches, you start to run into the risk of accordioning problems. So what are accordioning problems? Well, when the wheat is too deep, and in my experience here, and I've grown wheat for many years, I took a long break from wheat. I just never really felt that it was worth the effort. But as a cover crop, and as the profit margins continue to narrow up for everybody in agriculture, you really have to look for every avenue of revenue. So even though I will not take the straw and sell it, I need that for the soybeans, because I'm going to double crop beans, which again, 1 inch, 1.5 inches. All right, so once you get below that 1.75 inches to that 1.5 inches, some people put it in deeper. You get to 2 inches deeper. If it gets rain, it accordions and it never comes through. It's just basically dead seed. So that's why it would have only been 1 inch. And I'm actually right now on my way to take you to a field that was planted 2 or 3 days before the last that I planted. Now, they did the chisel plow disc it, plant it. That's what they did. Chisel, disc, plant. And it sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there. I had my wheat coming through the ground before this wheat ever started to move. And this was drilled. So you just, there's an ugly Cybertruck. So you just kind of got to understand that not every area in the country is the same. Not every practice is going to work the way it works in your area. And I'm not whining, I'm not complaining, I'm just explaining. There was a fellow that contacted me. He said, why didn't you drill it? You know, we drill here. I'm in, I think he said Montana. Well, Montana's cool, right? Montana's cool, but Montana does not have the rainfall that we have here in New Jersey. So I'm going to pop off here. This is not my farm, does not belong to me. The farmer that does farm it is not friendly towards me. I don't have a problem with him, but he's not friendly towards me, and he might take some offense to this. I'm not saying that his wheat is better than mine or worse than mine or any different than mine. I'm just saying that he drilled it. So I'm going to pop out here. I'll flip the camera around, right? So this was drilled, and it's just now coming through the ground. It just came through the ground. So you can see it here, right? You see a nice line, nice row. There's nothing in between. He's got the same thing right here, just coming through. You can barely see the lines. You can see them either way. So it's drilled. He put this in, like I'm saying, like a day or two before, day or three before I planted mine with the vertical tillage machine. Okay, cool. He worked his ground. I worked my ground with the vertical tillage machine that deep. He chiseled that and ran the disc over it. He went way deep. So he went 6 to 8 inches deep with his chisel plow, and then disced it, and then put it in with it was a no-till drill, which kind of made it look like it rolled it. And it sat there forever. Now it's come up. The only difference is all his wheat is at planting depth. There's nothing sitting on top. But I can guarantee you, he only put 2.5 to 3 bushel to the acre in those rows. All right, so this is, you can see how green it is, maybe. Rye's a little funny. It bows down when it's cold and turns purple and gets real weird. But there it is. Never worked. None of this ground was worked. This was soybeans. Took the soybeans off. The trash is here. Everything's there. I don't see any seed there, but it's doing its thing, right? It's a mat of green, which is holding the soil, which is feeding the biology, which is breaking down and mineralizing the nutrients that are already in the soil, and it is going to save me a fair amount of money in the spring when I come back through and plant whatever it is I plant. And this was wheat last year. Then it went into double crop beans. Then it was wheat cover before I put the soybeans in. And we had left all the straw, and we ended up, the combine told me, 88 bushels average on the soybeans here. So it was good. There's only one field that was pretty beat up by the deer, and that's fine because we got that all under control. It was an impact, but it was a minor impact, so we just don't worry too much about it. So that's what can happen if you just throw it on. It does grow. You just got to have the right amount of rain. That, like I said, had 1.25 inches more than the wheat that I put on, and we had 47 days of no rain. The next rain that came in was 0.4 of an inch. And then it was another 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I think it was, I could go look at the records, but it was 2 or 2.5 weeks, wasn't quite 3, that we didn't get rain, and then the next rain event was like 9/10 of an inch. And then, of course, we've gotten rain since then. But from the date that we had planted it, it just laid there in the dust for a long time. Would not have made much of a difference if it was drilled in or run in with the vertical tillage machine. As you could see, that guy had drilled his in, IVT'd mine in. I personally think that my stand is going to be a little better because the plants are, you know, 1 inch to 1.5 inches apart from one another, still coming through the soil. I think this will be okay. There's enough seed out there that it's going to be a crop. So for everybody that said that I'm an idiot, everybody that said that I did it wrong, everybody that said that's not how I would do it, I really do appreciate some of your inputs. The people that were rude and critical of what was happening, yeah, you don't have to watch my channel. Nobody asked you to. Nobody's telling you have to watch it. I'm just saying, you know what? Be constructive. Don't be critical. You know, and constructive criticism is always welcome if you bring something to the table. But I love it when somebody comes on, calls me a stupid fool, and then turns around and they got no content on their channel whatsoever. I find that to be kind of comical, because they're just a bunch of armchair farmers. It's like with the tree, you know, I did not have to show the tree that fell against me. People that have cut trees understand and knew what had happened. They knew that it was a dangerous proposition, because cutting dead trees is always a dangerous proposition. Live trees are really easy to manipulate because the strength in the wood or the timber is still there, that you can, you know, if you know how to cut it correctly, you can manipulate it within the hinge. I was trying to manipulate a tree with a jack, a hydraulic jack. The problem was that tree was probably dead for 4 or 5 years, and it become brittle, and when it started to go over, it just popped off. I think they call that Barber Chairing. It Barber chaired off of there, and that was the end of it. It just came back over us, and you can't help that. Even the best lumberjack, timber, whatever the hell specialist, even the best ones have problems that happen. I've been cutting trees for approximately 40 years. Not every day, but I've cut a lot of trees. I know the dangers of it. I'm still here. So for those of you that, you know, think you know better than me, I'll give you a dead tree. I will tell you where to put it. You do what you think you can do the best you can with what you have. And if it goes badly, then you can, you know, you'll understand. If it goes the way you want it to go, then kudos to you. You did a better job than me. But don't be such an... Okay, we just had pretty substantial rainfall. And as you see in the video earlier on the neighbors wheat, what they've got, I figured I'd go out into this field here. This was one of the last farms that we had spun seed on, and Teresa ran the VT over. All right, so I'll just go to this. I don't want to go to the low spots because there was actually moisture there, and you can see that where the water's laying. But I'm going to walk up here to the higher spot, and we'll get down on our dirty hands and knees, and I'll show you what it looks like. This was planted after the neighbor's wheat. I say planted. It was spun on and VT'd in after the neighbor's wheat. Right, so I just wanted to show you that because he worked that in. He ran a chisel plow, then a disc, and they planted it with a 750 no-till drill. A newer one than mine, believe it or not. I bought mine after theirs, but they bought a brand new one and I bought a used one. So that's just the way that stuff goes. So as you can see, if you look out across this field, right, you see green, right? That's wheat. Yesterday you wouldn't have been able to see any of it because it was purple from the frozen weather. Today we got rain, so that kind of, and it's a warm rain, so everything that was frozen is not frozen any longer. This is a field that you can look back in my videos, because Timothy had videotaped me combining this back in October, and when I combined the wheat. So this looks like an average spot. Here's the wet spot, here's the dry spot. So let's get down in here and we'll take a look. See it? You see it? Yes, there's a couple of seeds that are still on top of the ground. All this wheat. All that's wheat, right? Just for record, I do not have to show anybody any of this, okay? But I am going to talk about it, because it annoys the piss out of me when people say, oh, you did it wrong. That's not how I do it in Montana. That's not how I do it in North Dakota. That's not how I do it in Kansas. That's not how I do it in Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Minnesota. That's not how we do it here. Correct. It isn't how you do it here. There. Every part of this country has different equipment. If you've only ever lived in, say, Texas, you'll have machines that are really strange to me there. If you've only ever lived in Iowa, you will have different machines than I have here. We just don't have the same equipment. I'm hoping that I can keep this from giving a wind noise. I do not have my microphone with me right now, because my truck, if you don't know, is way down there. Okay, so this wheat, I'm quite pleased with the way it looks for what we went through. 47 days of zero rainfall. 47 days of zero rainfall got my soybeans cut, it got my corn picked, and it got this wheat in the ground. Because normally, with the amount of acres that I had, I would still be messing around, probably just finishing up corn now, or I would have gotten finished. It's December, I probably would have been finished by now. Anyway, if we got the rain when this was planted, with the temperatures that we've been experiencing throughout October and November, this would be a green carpet. The wheat would be stooled out, and tillering out, and creating a nice root mass deep in the soil. But we didn't get that. We just didn't get it. I had one guy tell me that, well, that's what you get for not rolling your wheat fields. Nobody rolls wheat here. Nobody. This is run 1.5 inches deep with a vertical tillage machine after soybeans. Now, you're not going to be able to see it as good as you did in the other fields, but if you look, there's a lot of residue that's on top of the ground. Let's see. We got last year's corn residue, corn cobs, still some stalk material. That is exactly what I wanted. There's still all the soybean stubble is there and intact. Here's the one I see pretty easy. It's intact. There's the root mass. I just pulled it out. Believe it or not, soybeans do not build organic matter. They only take. Corn root mass, root balls do build organic matter. All the organic residue that's on the top will put nothing in as far as organic matter in the soil. Anything that is on top of the soil is just strictly organic residue. It'll protect the soil from the temperature and water runoff. There's no mud coming off this field, none. And if you can see it, hold on, I'm gonna stop pointing it to the ground. I'm gonna walk over here, because this is, believe it or not, it's a pretty good slope here. Once in a while, years past, you'll get a washout, and you can see where it was. I'm gonna point with my, what the heck is wrong with this thing? See what my finger is? I'm gonna point that. That was a washout. It would wash out. If I had chisel plowed this like I have in the past and ran a disc over it, that would have washed out today. It really would have. But because of the little bit of wheat that's growing, those roots are holding the soil, And this is a wet spot, obviously. You can tell because it's more damp, I got more wheat growing. This is what the whole field should look like. It should look like this, with all that wheat growing there. The whole field will look like that in the spring. When we do get spring weather and it warms up, it is going to continue to grow because we now have enough moisture to hold this, to get this to sprout, and those roots will continue to grow. I'm walking in the mud. So this is where, let me flip you around here. This spot here is where all the water ran, and you can see it ran down in there. Slightly discolored. That could be from me pulling in here with the truck, which it more than likely is. Over here, this is where that water is all pulling. Looks good. Organic residue there is holding the water in the field and keeping the soil that would have normally ran down through into the next old pasture. It's overgrown pasture there, which is a shame, but it's a wet spot. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and walk past here. I'm gonna wave to Mr. Herbell, and I'm gonna walk up in the field here. This is a small 4-acre field. What I'd like to do is come in here with a skid steer and push all those back, those autumn olives, so I have a little more room here that I can put my take my header on and off. There's the damaging crew over there. Those are deer. They are eating the wheat that's growing. This is done the same day, obviously, as that over there, but this is a more moist field. Yeah. So there they go. Is there 4 of them? They're living over there. They were really hard on the soybeans this year up in that corner, but we got some plans for them. So anyways, if you guys are complaining about my wheat growing and the way I grow wheat and because it's not the way you would do it, it's probably because you're not in this area. It's perfectly acceptable to do what I'm doing here. Maybe it won't work where you are because you have maybe 15 to 20 inches of rainfall per year, and it gets hot earlier and gets cold earlier than me. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter. Just watch the videos and enjoy. You'll see that this will come through. And it was not planted for, this wheat was not planted for grain harvest anyway. It was planted for cover crop. And what I'm going to do is so it's cover crop wheat. And if it does amount to something good, I will harvest it, right? Because that's what I'm gonna do. It won't be a thorn in my ass if it doesn't amount to anything too much. I always had the plan of using it, taking the best of the 450 acres, which is about 250 acres is what I wanted. The best of that will go to, well, they dumped that dirt in there. The best of it will go to grain harvest. The rest of it will go soybeans. Soybeans will be planted right through it. But I want to give it all the best chance it's got, because if the geese eat it, then I won't even have cover crop, right? So it will kind of destroy everything that I have planned for it. And I don't want to destroy anything that is planned for that wheat. So there you go. Okay. This is the last field we spun wheat onto and VT'd in. I was here a week ago and you could barely see anything. It was just nothing. But again, you take a look. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but it's green out there. It's definitely green. Got a green hue to it. And I'm going to get down here. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And yeah, it's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. But if you look, there's wheat. That. Plenty of wheat. This is one that had come up early and windburn. It's a grass. It's wheat. So, plenty of wheat. Okay. Tell me I did it wrong. It's okay. We're going to see how it works. You know, like produce a grain crop. There's 100 acres here. And if it didn't produce, then it goes into, it'll go into corn. It'll just be corn. And that'll be the end of it. I'll just plant straight through it. And it'll be corn. And there's no reason to complain about that, because I didn't have really any great hopes for it when I put it in. I figured, well, we'll put it on, we'll do a 4.5 bushel rate on this with the fertilizer spreader, VT it once. My wife went over it with the VT, and it was dust. It was so dry that they were complaining on the Kingwood Facebook page that there was dust and they couldn't see across 519. Well, 519 is 100 yards away from this farm. Wasn't happy about the dust because that's topsoil that's blowing away, right? But what are you gonna do? You know, you take the good with the bad, and then that's just the rest of it. But what I'm seeing here, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I think there's gonna be wheat here. I think there's gonna be a decent crop of wheat here, and I could probably drive out there. It's pretty hard there. Yeah, I don't have to drive out there, but I could just walk out there. It's green, clear across, so I'm happy with that. I'm not going to complain. So if I come up with 100 acres of wheat here, and last time we had a very dry spring, and in June, a very dry June, when it was supposed to be late May and June, right up into July, when we were supposed to be making grain here last time with wheat, still produced over 60 bushel to the acre. So that's what it is. To be honest with you, it looked better then than it does today. So if all works out and I actually do get all right, so good morning. I misspoke there. It looks better now than it did then. It was actually planted later the last time I had wheat on this farm, and it looks pretty okay. But if you've made it this far, thanks for watching the whole entire thing. If you're going to put stupid comments, just don't bother, because I'll just ignore you at this point. But this will be the last wheat video, because who wants to watch my grass grow until later on? If